Hi, I'm Mary Peck, and this is Really Universe, the podcast for people who are ready to stop letting fear make their decisions. And oh, by the way, we don't all call it fear. I know you, because I've been you. You might call it prudence or being responsible or being logical. Call it what you want, but deep down, if you are waiting for anything, it might be fear talking and trying to convince you that it's something else. Hear me out. What if the version of you that you haven't met yet is waiting on the other side of that thing that you keep saying no to? What if the only thing standing between you and a version of yourself that you've never met is one scary thing? It doesn't have to be a huge thing, just one thing that makes your stomach drop a little. Most of us never find out what we're actually capable of. Not because we aren't capable of finding out, not because the opportunity never came, but because when the scary thing showed up, we said no. Or we almost said yes and then we talked ourselves out of it. Or we stood at the door and then we turned around. And the version of us that was waiting on the other side of that door, we never met them. Today, we're talking about what happens when you stop letting fear or logic or responsibility or pride or whatever you're calling it make your decisions. About doing the thing that terrifies you. Not all at once, not recklessly, but consistently in small steps until one day you're standing somewhere you've never expected to be, surprising everyone in the room, including yourself. Let me tell you about one of my favorite memories of doing a scary thing. I was 16 years old and completely off the rails. Skipping school so often, I'm pretty sure there were classes I never attended. Partying on the weekends and getting so drunk, I have no idea how I got home. Living with my mom, who by this point was in marriage number 7 in Alaska. I was a hot mess and will never forget the day that she took me out to lunch and gave me a one-way ticket to Kansas. She sent me to live with my dad. In retrospect, that decision had to be one of the scariest decisions that she ever made. My mother was terrified of my father. He had a history of violence, and she had spent her life protecting me from him. The fact that she sent me to him anyways tells you everything about how worried she was about where I was headed. Well, Dad was living in a small town in Kansas, going through another divorce of his own, and sharing a house with my older brother who had grown up visiting this particular town every summer because he had lived with my dad and my paternal grandmother lived there. Everybody knew my brother. Nobody knew me. I enrolled there at the end of my first semester of my junior year of high school. New school, again, except this time it was different. Not a city, not another anonymous place to disappear into. A small town where everybody knew everybody and everybody knew my family. Both of my parents were from this town and everybody knew them. A girl from Alaska with roots here and a vagabond life story was suddenly interesting. I had Mrs. Reeves for English that first semester, and she was paying attention in a way that most teachers, through no fault of their own, had never had a chance to. We had never stayed anywhere long enough. There was never time to get to know me. She noticed my writing, not in a passing, nice work kind of way, in a this is something different kind of way. She assessed me when nobody else had taken the time. And what she found apparently gave her enough evidence to make a calculated bet on me. She wanted me to take her public speaking class second semester. My initial reaction? Absolutely not. Public speaking is one of the greatest fears known to man. People fear it more than dying. Are you kidding me? I don't think so. Just get me through the next year and a half without anybody noticing me, and I'll be on my way, thank you very much. I had spent a lifetime making myself invisible. I had learned that being seen was where the pain lived, and was so shy I could hardly introduce myself. I was 100% not interested in public speaking. I'm not sure how she talked me into it, but she did. It might have had something to do with my available options being a current events class with the football coach or home economics. My choices were pretty limited in this small town. Much to my surprise, she gave me something I didn't realize I needed: confidence and hope. We started with easy 5-minute speeches, and everyone else in the room was as inexperienced as I was, all 10 of us. There were cowboys giving speeches on how to rope or clean a gun, and speeches on how to prepare for the local 4-H competition. The barrier to success was pretty low in this small town. I think my speeches were about places I'd been, and since most of these kids had never been out of Kansas, those speeches turned out to be pretty interesting. Before long, she was asking me to join the forensics team and take my speaking talents to competition. Nope. That's a complete sentence, by the way. I'm thinking no. I'm definitely thinking no. I'm not interested in competitions. But she convinced me. She told me it's just 4 judges at a time, less than our classroom audience. I'm pretty sure she convinced me with praise and a belief in my abilities. I was starving for both. I didn't know who I was or what I was capable of, so having someone believe in me made me want to do anything I could for her. Okay, fine. I'll do the thing. She chose a piece for me for competition, a condensed version of The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. We had read it in our English class, so I was familiar with it. I would be orating it as if I were the author. Every word memorized, every emotion deliberate. If you've never read The Telltale Heart, it's pretty gruesome. It's about this guy who killed someone, hit him in the floorboards of his house, and then went crazy and kept hearing his heart beating. While the police were there to ask questions, this guy progressively got more crazy in his head until he snapped. So I had to both memorize the story and act pretty crazy. Considering I'd been acting a little crazy while living with my mom, you'd think this would be easy for me, and you'd be wrong. Here's what Mrs. Reeves understood that I didn't yet. You don't go from invisible to competitions in one step. You build there. First, it was just us, her classroom, me and her. Like I said, I had to memorize the entire piece. And then I had to find the right emotions to make it convincing. And finally, I had to deliver it to 4 judges at a time. We edited constantly. While I was mid-delivery, she would stop me, adjust something, and have me try again. It was scary every single time. But she made it safe enough to be a type of scary that I could handle. Then I'd deliver it to the other members of the team, a few peers. Scarier, but still manageable. Then the competitions. 4 judges in a room, and me. Still scary, but there weren't really any expectations that I'd win anything. And then I started winning competitions. What? How the hell did this happen? It felt good. Built up my confidence a bit. I guess speaking isn't so scary. Once I had success at competitions, she had me deliver it to my class. These are my peers, my new peers. What if I stuttered? What if I forgot a word? Well, it turns out they didn't know if I forgot a word. They didn't have the script. And they were impressed. Then the scariest of all. Hey, Mary, we want you to deliver your speech at the spring concert. What is a spring concert? I asked. It's a show that we put on for the entire community in the gymnasium. The whole town is invited, which granted wasn't that big, but the gymnasium full of people? I'm thinking no, I'd rather not. Again, she convinced me. I stood up there and delivered that Poe story to every person in that community. And in the most crucial part of the story, when I'm yelling about the pounding of this hideous heart and why can't these police officers hear it, I strategically looked out into the stands and my eyes landed on my brother and dad. They were both leaned forward in their seats and completely captivated, as was the rest of the audience. I even messed up once, but nobody knew. They didn't have the script. After the show, my brother came up to me, my popular, well-known, everybody loves him, older brother, whose approval meant everything to me at that point in my life. And he said, "Wow, I had no idea you could do that." He was genuinely shocked. Honestly, so was I. Wow, really, universe? That was in me this whole time while I was being silent? But the story doesn't end in the gymnasium. A few months later, due to the small amount of confidence I'd gained, I auditioned for the school musical. I wasn't trying to get a singing part. I was going for something with lines, a small, barely noticeable speaking role. Again, the only reason I was even auditioning was because she and the music teacher conspired together and convinced me to audition for a small part. I was quiet and shy. My brother was the singer in our family, taking after our father, who sang professionally at one point. That was his thing, not mine. I had never once considered that singing might be something that I could do. When I got up to audition for my speaking part, they told me they wanted me to sing a song. I hadn't prepared. I hadn't practiced. I had every reasonable excuse to say no. And for a split second, I almost did. But I was in the choir, and the music teacher suggested a song she knew that I knew. In hindsight, I truly believe the two of them had planned this the entire time. So I sang, unprepared, unrehearsed, in front of my peers and people who could actually sing. I had no idea what was about to come out, probably a barely audible squeak. Afterward, a guy from the school's special music group came up to me and said, "How is it we never knew you could sing?" I guess I didn't know either, until I was practically forced to do it. Two different people, two different moments, the same question. To be fair, it's not like I opened my mouth to sing and it sounded like angels or anything, and I didn't get a singing part. But that's not the point. The point is, I did the scary thing, and I'm still alive to talk about it. Here's what I didn't understand at the time, but have come to know deeply since. Those two moments, the gymnasium and the audition, didn't just feel good. They became evidence. They got stored somewhere in my nervous system as proof of something I couldn't yet articulate, proof that I could do hard things. A few years later, sitting at a kitchen table with a highlighter and a book about positive thinking, that moment we talked about in episode 2, the belief I was building wasn't being built from nothing. It was being built on a foundation that already existed. Quiet, but there. I had proven to myself that I could do hard things. Seligman, we've talked about him in a prior episode, called it immunization. Prior mastery experiences that buffer against helplessness. That's what saying yes to the scary thing does. It doesn't just build confidence, it builds evidence. Evidence that you are capable of more than you know. In episode 2, when Peel's book asked me to believe my actions could change my life, some part of me already had proof that they could. I just had to remember where I'd put it. I think about Mrs. Reeves a lot. I think about what it meant to have one person, one, who saw something in me before I could see it myself, who kept showing up, who made it safe to risk being seen. This woman was truly a remarkable influence in my life. She showed up in so many other ways that are likely to come up in other episodes. I hope everyone has a Mrs. Reeves in their life. And I think about what would have happened if I had kept saying no. No to the speech class, no to the competitions, no to the plays. I almost did, more than once. Saying yes changed the trajectory of my life. I ended up having a career largely focused on public speaking and presentation skills. Those skills got me promoted and gave me a voice in every conference room and boardroom I entered. The version of me that could command a room, that could stand in a gymnasium and make her brother forget to breathe, she was waiting for the right conditions, waiting for someone to believe in her before she believed in herself, and waiting for me to stop saying no. And because of one woman in Kansas who decided I was worth the bet, I finally did. So why is the scary thing so scary? Because for most of us, the resistance isn't random. It has a history, a very specific, very logical history. In my case, it started with a lisp. If you've never had one, let me paint the picture. Every time you open your mouth, something comes out wrong. You don't sound like the other kids, and other kids, being kids, let you know it, loudly, repeatedly. So you learn the way all children learn, through cause and effect. Open mouth, get hurt. The solution is obvious. Don't open your mouth. It's much like the shocks the dogs received in the last episode. For me, teasing was the shock. The way to avoid the shock was not to speak. Psychologists who study shame describe it this way. Shame develops from the human need for approval from others. When a child experiences repeated disapproval, especially from peers, especially in public, shame becomes the emotional response. And shame doesn't just make you feel bad, it changes your behavior. It makes you smaller, quieter, less visible, because visible is where the pain is. Then layer on top of that what was happening at home. A father who used to time how long it took to make me cry at the dinner table. It was a daily race to beat his prior time. While he was physically abusive to some people, he was emotionally abusive to me. I want you to sit with that for a second. Not as a horror story, but as a data point, because that's what it was to a developing brain. Data, evidence. A lesson being burned into the architecture of a child's brain in the most formative years of her life. The lesson? Your feelings are a target. Your reactions are entertainment. The safest thing you can do is feel nothing, show nothing, be nothing, and whatever you do, don't speak. The American Academy of Pediatrics puts it starkly. Early adversity leaves a lasting signature on brain architecture, not a metaphorical signature, a literal one. The developing brain wires itself around the evidence it receives. We talked in episode 2 about learned helplessness, the research showing that when a brain receives repeated evidence that its actions don't change outcomes, it stops trying. If you want to go deeper on that, episode 2 is where we live in it. For today, just know that shame and helplessness are very close cousins. Shame says you are the problem. Helplessness says there's no point anyway. Together, they build a very convincing case for staying invisible. Now add the moving. Every year, new school, new kids, no time to establish trust before it was time to pack again. No continuity, no one teacher long enough to really see you. Social roots that never had time to take hold. That girl you just met in the story, the one in Alaska skipping school, sent to Kansas to live with one of her former original tormentors, the one who refused to open her mouth for years, that's the nervous system I'm describing, not broken. Perfectly adapted to a world that had repeatedly shown her that being seen was where the pain lived. So when Mrs. Reeves asked her to take a public speaking class, to stand up in front of people and open her mouth, every single piece of wiring in that nervous system said, nope, loudly, urgently, for very good reason. That's the wiring that makes the scary thing feel impossible. Not weakness, not a lack of ability, a perfectly rational nervous system doing exactly what it was trained to do, protect us. The question is, what happens when you say yes anyway? Let's talk about what happens on the other side of the door. Here's what Mrs. Reeves actually did. She didn't motivate me. She didn't tell me I was special. She didn't ask me to believe in myself before I had any reason to. She engineered a progression of mastery experiences. Seligman, when a person has accumulated enough evidence that their actions produce results, that evidence doesn't just sit there. It gets encoded. It becomes a resource the brain can draw on when the next hard thing arrives. Not a feeling, not a belief, evidence. Albert Bandura, the Stanford psychologist who spent decades studying what actually builds confidence, called this self-efficacy, your belief in your own capacities to succeed at a specific thing. His research identified mastery experiences as by far the most powerful source of self-efficacy. Not encouragement, not talent assessments, not being told you can do it, not motivational quotes, actually doing it and surviving. Each step in Mrs. Reeves' progression was designed to produce exactly that. Just us, very safe. 4 judges, a little less safe. My class, even scarier. The gymnasium, terrifying. Each step added a deposit to an account my brain was keeping without my knowledge. Evidence that I could handle more than I thought. Every award at a speech competition was evident that I wasn't awful at this and might be actually pretty good at it. Every positive comment or enthralled look on the face of a listener was evidence to me. And here's what the American Academy of Pediatrics research confirms. The same brain that wires itself around adversity keeps taking in new evidence for as long as you give it some. The architecture built in childhood is not a life sentence. It's just a starting point. New experiences, repeated over time, build new structure. The old wiring doesn't disappear, but new wiring gets louder. That's what was happening in that classroom in Kansas in the 1980s. One delivery of the telltale heart at a time. Now, here's what I want to say to the people listening who don't have a Mrs. Reeves right now, who are going to have to build this without someone in their corner. You can still do it. It just looks a little different. The safety doesn't have to come from another person. It can come from the structure that you create yourself. Small steps, deliberately chosen, stakes low enough that failure doesn't destroy you, but high enough that success means something. Write that first draft that nobody reads. Practice the conversation in the mirror. Sing in the car before you sing in the room. Make sure that you can run around the block before signing up for a 5K. Each small success is a deposit. And over time, with enough deposits, the wiring starts to shift. Mastery experiences work whether they happen in a classroom in Kansas with a teacher who believes in you or alone in your living room at midnight proving something to yourself that nobody else will ever know about. What matters isn't the audience, it's the evidence. Maybe most important is your willingness to try. The conditions Mrs. Reeves created were necessary. They were not sufficient. I had to choose to walk through the door every single time. You can open your own door, and then you can choose to walk through it, or not. So what about you? Maybe your story looks nothing like mine. Maybe you didn't have a lisp or a difficult father or a teacher who saw something in you before you could see it yourself. Maybe your scary thing looks completely different. A conversation you've been avoiding, a career pivot that terrifies you, a creative pursuit you keep talking yourself out of, a room you keep almost walking into and then turning around, metaphorically, of course. It doesn't matter what it looks like. The wiring is the same, the resistance is the same, and the antidote is the same. Do the scary thing in small steps. One room at a time. So 1, identify your scary thing. What is that thing that you are avoiding because it's not the right time, or you don't have the money, or it's not the responsible thing to do? What is the thing? What is the thing that makes your stomach drop a little when you think about doing it? The thing you've been circling. The thing you keep almost doing and then finding a reason not to. You already know what it is. You've known for a while. Hell, there might be several hard things on your agenda. Write it down. Name it. Because a scary thing with a name is smaller than a scary thing without a name. Here's the thing about scary things. Our perception of the scary thing is subjective. In his book, Big Potential, Sean Achor talks about a study conducted in Virginia where a group of researchers wanted to study how your perception changes your physical environment. This is fascinating. The study was initially focused on those hospitalized or in physical pain, and they found that people in pain actually saw the hallways as being much longer than they actually were. Okay, that was in a hospital. What about normal, healthy people? So they did another study and had participants look at a hill. And again, fascinating. If a participant looked at a hill and thought that they were going to climb it alone, it was 15 to 20% steeper than if they thought somebody was going to be climbing it with them. Even imagining someone climbing it with them made it 15% less steep. Our minds literally make things scarier than they are. Our bodies are made to protect us from threat, real or perceived. Just tell your brain to calm down. Nobody's going to get hurt here. Number 2, build your progression. I didn't go from being invisible to presenting at the spring concert in one step. Find the version of your scary thing that is just scary enough to be a stretch, but small enough to survive. I call this chunking. It works for task management and for everything else in life. Chunk your scary thing into smaller, more doable steps. When you want to run a marathon and that scares the hell out of you because you've been living on your couch for the past decade, you start with a walk and then you work up to a jog around the block. And you keep progressing from there. This is a skill that will help you both clean the house as well as do the scary things. Chunk it into manageable pieces, whatever that looks like for you. Want to leave your current well-paying job? Start by thinking about what you'd rather be doing instead. Then clean up your resume to make it a perfect match for that role that you want, while still being honest, of course. Then contact a few people you trust to review your resume and quietly put the word out. You get the idea. You don't have to give your notice today. You can chunk it into manageable pieces and take one step at a time. Each small win is a deposit into the evidence that your brain is building. That first time you jog around the block without stopping, that's evidence. When your savings account hits $5,000, that's evidence that you know how to save. Okay, 3, say yes when everything in you says no. There's a specific feeling, and I think you know it, when something appears in front of you and you feel kind of a flutter of excitement, followed immediately by a surge of resistance. That flutter is information. It's telling you that whatever just appeared matters to you. The resistance is your nervous system doing what it was trained to do. Protect you from being seen. Say yes to the flutter. You don't have to feel ready. You just have to make the choice. I've been practicing doing scary things for decades, and I still, on purpose, look for scary things to do just to keep that muscle limber and remind myself that I'm capable. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's deciding that something else matters more than the fear. Tip number 4, be someone else's Mrs. Reeves. My mother gave me the belief that knowledge was the lever. Mrs. Reeves gave me the conditions to discover what I was capable of. Years later, I sat across from my somewhat introverted son who aspired to be a software engineer as we prepared for his freshman year of high school. At this orientation, I told him he had exactly one requirement for his schedule from me, and that was 1 semester of public speaking or drama. When I did that, I was passing something forward that had been passed to me. He begrudgingly chose drama because public speaking wasn't being offered the first semester, and he wanted to get this over with. I only required 1 semester. He chose 4 years. First working on sets behind the scenes, then participating in small roles, then bigger roles, then leading roles, and then solos in musicals. We had no idea he could act, much less sing. Ultimately, he won a scholarship to NYU. There is something amazing that happens when you give to others. Just in writing this episode, I was reminded of my own capabilities. By giving to you through my knowledge, I also helped myself. That's not the goal of giving, but it is what happens. Look around you. Who in your life is circling their scary thing and talking themselves out of it? Who needs someone to create just enough safety for them to say yes? You don't just get to receive this, you get to give it. That's not a small thing, that's a legacy. I want to acknowledge a nuance before I go. Doing the scary thing sounds simple when said as a statement. Say yes when everything in you says no. Just do the hard thing. Sounds simple. But I know it isn't. For some of you, the resistance isn't just nerves. It's something older and deeper than that. The shame we talked about, the wiring from early adversity, it runs so deep in some people that the idea of being seen or trying or risking failure in front of anyone feels genuinely unbearable. Not uncomfortable, unbearable. If that's you, please hear me. What you're carrying isn't weakness. It's the perfectly logical result of a nervous system that learned to protect you the only way it knew how. And that kind of wiring often needs more than a progression of small steps to untangle. It needs professional support, a therapist, a counselor, someone trained to help you understand what's actually happening underneath the resistance. Going and getting that help isn't a detour from doing the scary thing. It is the scary thing. And doing it is exactly the kind of yes we've been talking about. For everyone else, I want to leave you with this. You have no idea what's in you. None of us do. Not really. Because we only ever discover what we're capable of by doing the thing that terrifies us. The version of you that can command a room or write the book or start the business or have the conversation or make the change, that version isn't just waiting to be discovered. It's waiting for you to create the conditions. I mean, I've been putting off this podcast for years, and I've studied these concepts for decades. You don't need a Mrs. Reeves to start. You just need one small step, one scary thing, one yes, and then another, and then another. Until one day you're standing somewhere you never expected to be, surprising everyone in the room, including yourself. Hey, if something in today's episode landed for you, I'd love to hear about it. Leave a comment and tell me about it. Be sure to subscribe to hear future episodes, and maybe the greatest gift would be to share this episode with somebody else who has a hard thing that they are working through. There's links in the descriptions to other episodes and also to the research that's covered in this episode. And that thing that scares you, the universe isn't trying to stop you. It's trying to show you something. Go find out what it is. Come on now. Really, universe?